It's now official that the actual filming for House of Dragon has begun. So, what do we have to say about HOD? Well, we're getting a sneak peek at some things occurring. Not a lot. Again, the photos available, as well as the photos they've released, are a little bit chaotic, but we do see a few things. We finally see them in costume, and so we're getting a preview of how the Targaryens are going to look. I know there's already been a lot of criticism early on about they don't look very impressive or the costumes don't seem to be all that strong. Add on the green screen and add on various other things, it's going to look a lot better. It is true at this point, it's not very impressive because, again, they have to scale back productions due to the crisis, and so they're kind of restricted in terms of what they can film and what they can't film. Though, again, that's for now. It could be getting much more ambitious as they'll do the filming later on. I myself am kind of mixed in terms of who they picked for these Targaryens. Again, I understand the reasoning that they're getting people who are very familiar to the kind of BBC and British audience. And that's what you notice right away is the casting is so decidedly British and Irish. And you might think, well, Game of Thrones was that too, right? And the answer is no, not really. They actually had quite a lot of international people within the cast. And of course, the most prominent person was Peter Dinklage, who was not British or Irish. So the question is, well, what happened or what changed? And I think, unfortunately, the answer is simple: money. They've had a kind of deal in terms of getting tax breaks with the government. And so I understand they already have a pre established relationship. They want to keep that because apparently it works for them in terms of profitability, but that's skewed the casting by a whole lot. It's not just that they don't look like the Targaryens in the books, which a lot of people have already criticized, and that's fine. But the fact is, they're already skewing the casting, I think, to be sort of friendly to a British and European audience, in which I'm sort of like, I'm not clear why that is so, because again, Britain is fine. It's a major place that we have a lot of fans for GOT and George R. Martin and so on and so forth. But why do it so focused on that kind of casting? And it seems like it's not just laziness, it's just that they just don't want to look at other people for various reasons, including tax reasons, right? Because you have to hire a certain amount of local talent to get access to tax breaks. So it just feels very skewed casting from my perspective. But in terms of the actual photo sets, it's very interesting because they're already getting the insignia. So they're doing various things to set up the world. So we're going to preview a little bit of what they're going to do. So what is the story? Well, this is a prequel series. We're not getting precisely the Game of Thrones events. We're just getting sort of a time before Robert Baratheon was king and sort of how the Targaryens were in their prime. And then the whole thing started to fall apart with infighting and factions within the Targaryen family. Again, remember they practice incest. So we're going to see plenty of romantic rivalships back and forth in terms of the various Targaryens. I have to say I'm just not as much into the Targaryen histories as other people are. I mean, again, as a person who does the YouTube channel, I have to study up on it. I have to bone up on it. I have to try to at least make sure, I know who this person is versus that person. But I'm just not all that engaged. So I'm not the primary audience for it. But I'll do my reviews and do my due diligence as I'm doing now. I don't know how catastrophically bad this is in terms of how they're stylizing the show. I would say they look impressive enough. And again, remember, this is still early on. These could just be prototypes, and when it comes to final editing, they'll change the costumes or change various things. Still, it's very interesting how they're choosing to frame them on the beach and things like that, and how we're already getting a sense of what the focus will be, which will be mainly these houses clashing. But what I thought was better with Game of Thrones is we got a panorama. We didn't just concentrate on the elites or just the houses fighting one another. We got a real sense of other people. Granted, not enough, and they didn't fill out the world as much as they should have, but, we don't just stick to, quote, people fighting over the Targaryen kingdoms and things like that. We do focus on other things, so it'll be interesting. I do wonder, though, because we don't see yet any signs of how they're going to use the dragons, and I'd imagine they're going to use a lot of dragons, because, again, these are fan favorites for people who follow the books, but even if you just don't, they're alluded to a lot in Game of Thrones is how powerful these dragons are. And I'm pretty surprised they haven't even tried to show off early on how the dragons are going to look, who they are, what they're going to be up to. I would think that's going to be a major attractive point for the series. Even if you don't care about the Targaryens, you want to see the dragons in action and you want to see how they're controlled and how they're going to be manipulated and used. And so far, not many details. The details have been mainly on the human actors, and it just seems they're making a kind of Godzilla mistake, thinking we care about the human actors in this drama, and the answer is no. I think a lot of people care mainly about Godzilla. We don't really care about the human beings. I'm sure there's a part of the fan audiences that are like, if I have to put up with the human drama, that's fine. But Give me the dragons. That's what I'm here for. I don't really care about this whole larger Targaryen history. And thus far, we're not getting any details on how the dragons are going to look, which I think is really surprising because some of this is clearly something they're allowing to be leaked. And so it's kind of weird that they're focused so much on the actors. I guess that they think that these are sex symbols or that they're very popular with their respective audiences. Right, if you're into Doctor Who and all that, you're going to like some of these actors, and the other actors are going to be familiar from other productions. But it did seem to me a tactical mistake not to give us a little bit more on the actual dragons. I mean, it's in the title of the goddamn series, but there you are. That's my advice for them. Start giving us more info on the actual dragons. All right, this has been a sneak peek at the upcoming prequel series on Game of Thrones Analyzed. Thanks for listening.